Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we'll be taking a closer look at Mama. Directed by Andy Muschietti and produced by Guillermo Del Toro, the film stars Jessica Chastain and Nikolai Coster-Waldau as the guardians of two feral children that have been lost in the woods for 5 years. When the kids come back to society, they bring something back with them, a spiritual being known as Mama. Written by the Argentinian brother and sister team of Andy and Barbara Muschietti and based off of their 2008 Spanish short film Mama, the film revolves around two sisters, Victoria and Lily, who were left stranded in the woods after the tragic death of their parents. After unexpectedly reuniting with their father's twin brother Lucas and his girlfriend Annabelle, the two children begin to show signs that their miraculous survival for years without adult supervision had been assisted by a supernatural force that had attached itself to the children. Speaking about how the team began their collaboration, Del Toro said that when he saw Andy's short film, which showed two kids being scared of a creepy, jittery entity they called Mother, he'd nearly crapped his pants. After the film made its way around a few festivals, both Andy and his writing partner Barbara found themselves being swarmed by curious audience members that wanted to know how it was possible that those two little girls were the daughter of that monster. Given the skillful execution of the 3-minute short film and the buzz that was surrounding it, Del Toro sought the team out, and over the course of the next 2 years, they began conceptualizing the full story and eventually developed a full script with the help of veteran screenwriter Neil Cross. If you haven't seen it, I recommend that you check it out on YouTube, as you'll be able to see where the feature got its visual style, mood, and tone.
Victoria, no mires, vamos! Victoria! No!
By 2010, the group fleshed out the story and expanded it to include the circumstances of how the girls found themselves in that situation. The then relatively unknown Jessica Chastain was the first to be cast in the lead role of Annabelle in early 2011 as a reluctant woman that begins taking care of them in the absence of their uncle. This was shortly followed by the Kingslayer, Nikolai Coster-Waldau, in the dual role of their father and uncle, and the two phenomenal child actors Megan Charpentier and Isabelle Nelise. After the remaining supporting characters were all cast a few months later, the film began production in early October of the same year.
That is not a creepy castle or an abandoned mansion. And Andy was very specific about, I don't want the house to be like a creaky Victorian house. I want it to feel really benign, but rotten.
Shot over 2 months at Pinewood Toronto Studios and in Quebec City, Muschietti was fortunate enough to have Del Toro on hand for assistance as his own film Pacific Rim was being shot in every other soundstage surrounding Mama's main set.
We wanted to make this from the beginning a story that scares you but also touches you deeply.
The film begins with a man killing several of his business partners and his estranged ex-wife due to his mental illness, which was exacerbated by the financial crisis of 2008, where he lost his job and his entire fortune. While the film is obviously a work of fiction, it was based in reality, with thousands of reported cases of people taking their own lives and the lives of their families at the height of the stock market crash. Heading into the woods of Virginia with his children, 5-year-old Victoria and his 2-year-old Lily, Jeffrey's erratic driving and excessive speed on a remote snowy road leads to him crashing his vehicle. They eventually stumble through the woods and find a cabin, and when the troubled father attempts to take their lives as well as his own, he is killed by a strange figure, later revealed to be an entity called Mama. The ghost known as Mama was portrayed by a number of different actors. Her twisted form was portrayed by Javier Botet, who also played the Crooked Man in The Conjuring 2, Keyface in Insidious, and one of the many forms taken by It in the 2017 adaptation, which was also directed by Andy Muschietti. Her beautiful form as Edith Brennan, the woman she was before being corrupted, was portrayed by Hannah Cheeseman, while her voice was performed by both Laura Gutierrez and Melina Matthews. In the film, we discover that Edith Brennan was a former patient at St. Gertrude's Asylum in the 1800s. Her appearance and simple actions implied that she had Down syndrome, and as she was believed to have been incapable of taking care of her baby, the child was taken from her. After breaking out of the asylum, Edith stabbed a nun who had taken the baby into her care and reclaimed her child, but then found herself being chased by an angry mob. Cornered at the edge of a cliff overlooking a lake and seeing no other path, she jumped off the cliff and hit a tree branch on the way down. While an unconscious Edith fell into the lake and drowned, the baby was stuck on the tree branch and was recovered later by the group that was chasing her. Because of this trauma, Edith became a ghost torn by the agony of not knowing where her child was, which in turn caused her to take the form of a physically twisted entity. After her transformation, Edith turned into a monstrous and skeletal figure with greyish skin, frail and disjointed limbs, and long sharp fingers. She also had a pair of round, glowing blue eyes and dirty hair that flowed in an ethereal and eerie manner. As a ghost, Mama was capable of wraith-like powers, most infamously her ability to fly and hide in the shadows, as well as being able to suck the life essence of her victims and even possess them to achieve her ultimate goal. Searching the woods for centuries trying to find her baby, she eventually stumbled upon Victoria and Lily, who were about to be killed in the cabin by their ill father. Seeing this as an opportunity to raise the children as her own, she attacked Jeffrey and began taking care of the children, whom she psychologically substituted for her own child. 5 years later, we find out that their uncle Lucas and his girlfriend Annabelle had been madly searching for his brother and the girls, practically bankrupting themselves in the process. The searchers they hired stumble upon the crashed car and find the two children in the cabin. Because of the young age that they'd left society, and they're being raised by an entity rather than a family, we see that the children become feral, more akin to Smeagol than young girls. After their discovery, they're put under the care of a psychiatrist called Dr. Dreyfus, who seemed to be more interested in discovering how they'd survived than with actually supporting their rehabilitation. With a legal dispute erupting over custody of the children between Lucas and the rich sister of their mother, Dr. Dreyfus agrees to recommend Lucas and Annabelle as the children's legal guardians to the court, as long as they agreed to move into a special home used to perform case studies. This is the first clue we get to his selfish motives, as he knew that he wouldn't be able to monitor their progress if their aunt, who lived on the other side of the country, was to obtain custody. While the court initially rightfully questioned the ability of Lucas and Annabelle to raise the children in a small apartment with little income given their special needs, Dr. Dreyfus is able to sway the court to hand the children over to their uncle. I think it's important to note that while Lucas loved the children, Annabelle's feelings towards them is indifferent at first, given that she didn't want kids of her own.
Come here. No, don't call me that. I'm not your mom. I'm Annabelle. You can call me that. Or Annie, or whatever you like.
There's a great scene at the start of the film where she takes a pregnancy test and celebrates after discovering that she was not carrying a child. This obviously doesn't make her a bad person, but is merely a signal that she was not yet ready for motherhood. It quickly becomes apparent that the strange figure, whom the children repeatedly referred to as Mama, was in the new home with them, managing to travel to and from the cabin through a black spiritual doorway created in the walls. Her history is also given throughout the movie through a combination of dreams Annabelle has, induced by Mama, research done by Dr. Dreyfus, and conversations he has with Victoria. Throughout the movie, Mama's arrival is generally signaled by black butterflies and electrical problems in the house. While in some cultures, black butterflies symbolize the positivity found in change and rebirth, it's also a symbol of misfortune and an omen of death. In this film, their presence sits in this sort of middle ground as a representation of rebirth, change, and of course death. And as mentioned before, they also signal the arrival of Mama, who herself had gone through a metamorphosis and was in a transition to her final form, which she would achieve at the film's climax, while also representing her wrath and the bad luck that would befall anyone that came in her way. I also thought it was important to note that Victoria always took off her glasses when she looked at Mama, and this was a conscious decision so as not to see her as she truly was. On the one hand, she did save their lives, but her vicious behaviour and true nature, though lost on Lily, who was too young to know any better, was evident to Victoria, who was torn between the old world she knew and the new one she'd developed with Mama. This conflict between the two worlds would eventually reach a crescendo and find a resolution at the end of the film, with both children ultimately choosing their own fate.
How could you know that story, Victoria? Did Mama tell you that story?
She showed me
How?
in a dream.
Victoria tells Dr. Dreyfus about Mama and how she won't come where she can be seen, and though he initially believes that Victoria may have had a split personality, leading to her taking the role of a mother figure for the girls, the further he digs into the mystery, the more he begins to realise that she may have been telling the truth. Indicative of Mama's jealous and vicious nature, early on in the film, Lucas is pushed down the stairs by Mama and ends up in a coma, and this forces Annabelle, who didn't want the children, to take care of them. Over time, Victoria becomes more like a normal child, but Lily retains her animal-like nature. As mentioned earlier, this is attributed to the fact that Victoria was older and thus had socially developed before their abandonment in the woods, while Lily was very young when Mama found them and knew no other life than the one she had with her ghostly protector. Over the weeks that she is forced to take care of the girls for the sake of Lucas, who would lose them to his sister-in-law if she abandoned them, Annabelle becomes more attached to the children. This is reciprocated by Victoria, who begins to prefer Annabelle over Mama, but Lily still remains completely loyal to Mama. While Mama does show that she was a loving parent that both played with and took care of Victoria and Lily the best way that she could, in times when Annabelle or Lucas attempted to usurp her role, she turned angry and extremely jealous, often lashing out, indicating that she could not control her malevolent side. After more strange occurrences in the home, including a nightmare in which Annabelle saw the past life of Edith Brennan and a terrifying moment where Mama attacked her, she realizes that the Mama both kids were referring to was real. Worrying for her safety, Victoria even suppresses the affection and love that she had for her new surrogate mother, and even tells Annabelle that Mama had a tendency to get jealous. Beginning to piece the mystery of Mama together, with Victoria telling him information about Edith she had no way of knowing, and with his actual seeing of Mama in the window as he left their home, in the course of his investigation, Dr. Dreyfus obtains custody of the corpse of Mama's baby. He also comes to believe that Mama was located at the cabin in the woods where the children were found and goes to investigate, but is killed by Mama there. It's hard to feel much sympathy towards him, as not only had he abandoned the kids and Annabelle, knowing full well that they were being haunted by the entity, but would also later discover he did this in the interest of publishing a book on the subject to propel his career. After visiting the family and seeing bruises Lily had from her animal-like tendencies, their aunt begins to suspect that they were being neglected and abused by Annabelle, and begins to spy on the house for proof. Lucas then has a dream induced by his brother while he was in a coma, asking him to save his children and pointing him to a location in the woods. Annabelle then visits the office of Dr. Dreyfus after another supernatural night at the house, and when she discovers that he was missing, she takes his files relating to the case. It's here that she learns that Mama was driven by the obsession to find her baby's remains, and also discovers a theory about ghosts being twisted souls doomed to repeat their mistakes. When they return home, Mama becomes angry and attacks Annabelle. Victoria tries hard to defend Annabelle and pleads for Mama to stop, but Annabelle is knocked out by the entity. Right after this, their aunt breaks into their house and gets possessed by Mama, who uses the body to take the children back to the cabin. Annabelle wakes up and grabs the remains of Brennan's child that she had found in the doctor's office and drives to the lake, finding Lucas along the way, who had left the hospital and gone to the site his brother told him about in his coma. They arrive at the cabin and find the body of his sister-in-law. Annabelle then sees the cliff that Mama had originally jumped from, and realizes that Mama's intentions were to jump off the cliff with the children. Though Lucas and Annabelle arrive in time to stop the children from jumping, Mama begins attacking them. The entity is then handed the remains of her own child and prepares to jump off the cliff with it, as she had done the first time, with her twisted appearance reverting to a more human one. However, as they are leaving, Lily shouts to Mama, causing her to regain her twisted appearance and attack, where she knocked Lucas out before grabbing the kids and walking to the edge of the cliff. Once again, Annabelle tries desperately to stop her, and is repeatedly beaten to the point that she could only hold on to Victoria. Though Mama tries to pull Victoria with her, her compassionate side reluctantly allows her to stay with Annabelle. We then see Mama jump off the cliff with Lily, wrapping the both of them in a cocoon-like cover before their bodies hit the branch, upon which they turned into a shower of butterflies as a representation of the metamorphosis they had undergone. This butterfly motif continues with a blue butterfly landing on Victoria, indicating that though they were gone, Lily would continue to watch over her. This ending shocked many audiences who were hoping for both Lily and Victoria to survive, but when explaining their approach, Muschietti revealed that in the minds of him and Del Toro, this was the only ending that was possible. As the audience, you're tricked into believing things will go well and start thinking that Lily can be recovered, but she doesn't know this world. Her attachment to Mama is unbreakable compared to Victoria, and in this way, that's her happy ending. Lucas reunites with the girls, if only for a brief period of time. Annabelle grows to love them both. Mama, though vindictive in her actions, is motivated by a desire to care for someone, an opportunity she was robbed all those years ago, and she finds this in Lily. Lily also loves Mama more than she loved Lucas, Annabelle, and even Victoria, so it made more sense for her to stay with the entity. I'm curious to hear what you guys thought about the film, and especially the ending, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. Well, that's all for today, folks. A big thanks to all of you guys who requested an explanation of Mama. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content, and if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film and Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh, God! Lily, you scare the crap out of me.
Annabelle! Lily's hungry! Annabelle?